So let me see if I have my samples of, yeah, here's for a trigger. So yeah, here's our data from the employee table. So there's our record down here. Our last record is business entity ID 290. No, that's not a unique key on this, but they all happen to be unique values. So if we look at our database, AdventureWorks 2008, tables, employee triggers, we'll notice that we have a trigger on this table. So sometimes you're doing something, maybe like this delete statement, and you'll see, oh, you're doing an update statement, so many rows were affected, and then you see another thing that says so many rows were affected. I'm like, well, what was that from? Well, it's probably from a trigger, and if you debug through this, you can you can find out what's going on. So here, let's go ahead and run this delete statement, execute it. You see we get a message, employees cannot be deleted. They can only be marked as not current. The transaction ended in the trigger. The batch has aborted. Now, that's a pretty straightforward message there, so we know, oh, there's probably a trigger, we can go find it, look at it, etc. But if we didn't know it, or if the trigger had a lot of complex logic in it and we wanted to see what paths we were taking, we could find out by debugging through that. So we'll go ahead and put our breakpoint there, execute, oops, I hit execute, sorry, debug, and we'll run till that statement. Okay, oh, I have the select going there. So now we're here on the delete, and if we step into, notice we get the employee trigger opened in another query window. And now we can step through this to see why this is happening. And we see, well, there's really no choice. It's just if our count is, our local variable called count is getting set to the row count, and that's got set to 1 because we were trying to delete one record, and we simply just get a message that employees can't be deleted. It rolls back the transaction. So we'll go ahead and continue out of there. And the last example I wanted to look at here was functions. This is a select statement from the product table. We'll execute this, and we get our 4 columns back. Notice our 4th column here is a function. Now, if we wanted to find out what was going on with that, we can put a breakpoint here, but really this is all treated as one line, so I think anywhere in there, I think in 2012 if you put a breakpoint there, it kind of like highlights the whole thing. So what I'll do now is go ahead and debug this, and you can see we're on this statement. Yeah, so in here you can see that it puts the breakpoint up at the select line. And let's step into this, and it opens up the function, and then we can see what's going on inside the function. In this case, oh look, it's setting for product ID equal to that, but it's only doing it at location 6. Oh, I see what's going on. And so we can see where product ID is 1, and it's returning 324 as the quantity. So that was the store procedures, triggers, and functions. And let's see if I can access my 2012. Okay, so with 2012, there are a few additional enhancements that have been made. And here I have just a simple while loop going on. We've got a counter variable, and then we're just doing a select. We're selecting basically the counter variable divided by 2. Unless the variable is equal to 71, then we take the counter variable divided by 0. Now maybe this was supposed to be something like divided by 1 or divided by 3, but we made a typo in there because we all know divided by 0, that's not going to work too well. So if we go ahead and execute this, This will run. This is inside a virtual machine, so it's a little slower than my other stuff. So this runs, and you can see we do get a message out, divide by 0 error occurred, and we do have our results. Okay, so if we wanted to debug through this inside the while loop, we can put our breakpoint at the select, and notice this is what I was talking about before, that it highlights the entire select statement, which is nice so you can see how that breakpoint works. So we'll have our breakpoint there. Now also, if you hover over some of these things while you're in the debugger, we'll get some additional options if you hover over variables. So let's go ahead and debug this. Notice the button has changed. It's the play button with the word debug, which is nice because that was a little confusing if you were used to using like 2000 and you upgraded to 2008. The play button was the execute button in 2000. So, all right, so let's go ahead and do this. And we're seeing some stuff in here that I didn't want to put in there yet. All right, so we are at our statement here. Oh, and that's one thing I forgot to show in the previous video. Let me just show this real quick. Well, actually, what you can do is you can click somewhere, right-click, and choose Run to Cursor. I mean, so my cursor is here, run to here, and that's useful if you've got, like, say 100 lines you're debugging, and the next 100 lines you say, oh, I don't really need these. You can click somewhere. Instead of putting a breakpoint on, you can click down there and choose Run to Cursor, and it will do that, although I have a breakpoint in between, so it wasn't able to do that. But Run to Cursor, now we're down here. So in any case, what we've got here is in 2012, you can highlight over a variable and you'll get to see the actual value, which is nice because if your local variable list is quite lengthy, if you have 20, 30, 40 variables in there and you have to scroll through them, that can be kind of a pain. Now what you can do is add them to the watch list. If you right click and choose Add Watch, it will add it over here, and then you can focus in on that one variable. You can add multiple variables to the watch list. Maybe there's 3 you want to look at. You can even group them. If you have 40 variables, but 3 of them kind of go together and another 3 go together, you can add them to different watch windows. Let's see what else we can do here. So, the counter, we want to see what happens when it gets to 70, 71. So, if we keep hitting, excuse me, I lost where my buttons are. Okay, they're in a different spot here. If we keep debugging or continuing on this, we're at 1, then we're at 2, and 2. So that's going to take a while. What we can do is right-click our breakpoint and choose to give it a condition. We'll say when our variable equals 71 is true. You can also do when, like, say, at li counter has changed. Well, for a while loop, that on your counter variable isn't very good, but if we didn't know when a variable was going to be changing, we could do that, and as soon as it changes, we can find that out. Now here, I'm actually going to set it when it gets to 71 that I want it to break. So now, when I hit continue, you'll notice that that's got the plus on there for the condition. This is like going, and it'll eventually stop when you hit 71. So, okay, now you're at 71. And we can say, okay, it's going to be when 71, then this less than 0, or this, excuse me, divided by 0. Now we can determine what's going on with that line. Now here, I'm just doing a super simplistic example, but I was looking at one the other day where we were looking at a certain table. So when a variable was equal to a certain table name, we wanted to stop. So that would have been nice to be able to use in that circumstance. All right. So let me go ahead and continue that just to finish it out. And a couple other things that were added. Let's see, debug. Can't remember if I said this or not, but that you can pin these so that when you're debugging through, oh, I forgot I have it set to that value now. But if you're debugging through, that you can see that value. For example, if I go to breakpoints, no, you can't. Yeah, here we go. Condition, I'm just going to uncheck that. So now if I hit continue, like we can see up in the window, you can see the actual value changing rather than looking down here. Now the watch lists are nice, but some people don't want to have all these extra windows open and they just would rather see it in this area. This is more like actual development language type debugging. All right, a couple other things that you can do in various windows. You could actually run statements that will return a single value. For example, I've got two things here. I've got select business entity ID from the employee view where the last name equals Smith. And we've got select the first name from the employee view where the business entity ID equal 56. Just two random queries I've got. So if I execute these, you notice that the first one returns two Smiths, or excuse me, returns two rows because there's two people with the last name Smith. And the second query returns one row. So if we go ahead and copy this and paste that into our into one of our windows, it will actually return that value and give us a data type. That's kind of nice. You could jump into another query window and do your query and whatnot, which I think most people would do, but we'll see in a second where this will help us out while we're debugging. And I just want to show you what happens if you put something in that does not return one value. We'll get this message that it could not be evaluated. Okay, so we've got this. There we go. We've got this statement where business entity ID equals 56. Let's say our counter variable here had something to do with that business entity ID. We say where business entity ID equals that variable. So now, as we debug through, we don't need to look up what's the first name of this record. It shows us that in that watch window. So that's pretty nice functionalities. If you're kind of like, well, I need to look up something based on this other value, you can do that right in the same window now. Oh, one other thing that I'm not going to demonstrate here, but that was added for 2012. With 2008, you could not debug on 2005 instances of SQL Server. In 2012, you can debug versions on 2005 provided they are using Service Pack 2 for SQL Server. You can debug those 2005 instances. All right, I think that's all that I've got right now on the debugger. If there's any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thanks everyone for watching and have a great day.